Good evening. I'm Chris Longley. In addition to being a UMKC trustee, I have the honor and privilege to serve as president of the UMKC Alumni Governing Board. And I'm excited to welcome you to a very special event brought to you by the UMKC Foundation. This evening, we have the opportunity to listen and learn from the authors of an incredible book that everyone should read. Read This When I'm Dead, a guide to getting your stuff together for your loved ones. Personally, as a financial advisor, I know firsthand how difficult it can be to have this discussion. The discussion about one's passing is never fun, but it is important to have. It's one of the hardest conversations, but everyone should have it with their loved ones. Thanks to our special guests, they've written a wonderful book that provides you and your loved ones with tips on what you need to know so everyone is prepared for in the future. As president of UMKC's Alumni Association, one of my favorite parts about the book is that it's written by a fellow UMKC alumnus, Annie Presley. Joining Annie this evening is her fellow co-author, Christy Howard. Annie and Christy will help guide you through how to gather all the important details that you need to know and have it in one place. From recording personal stories or your family's history, or keeping track of important documents. Tonight, you'll walk away with a better understanding of how to preserve your legacy and the special memories you want others to remember as they celebrate your life. When the presentation's over, please stay tuned for a live question and answer session with Annie and Christy. Let me close by saying thank you. Thank you for joining us tonight, but more importantly, thank you for supporting UMKC, the UMKC Alumni Association, and the UMKC Foundation. Have a wonderful night.
Hi, I'm Annie Presley.
And I'm Christy Howard.
We wrote this crazy book called Read This When I'm Dead. And we want to tell you about it today.
So this book was written one day. It's the story of our lives, actually, our accumulated life experience. And it happened one day at work.
So we were working together, and Christy got a call to go to the hospital to tell her mother goodbye. And the next day, she came back, and her mother lived. And spoiler alert, her mom's still alive to this day.
Yeah.
Christy had this giant notebook with a big ribbon wrapped around it. And I said, well, what in the world is that?
So I explained that when I was 17, my mom was given 6 months to live. And I'm not 17 or 27 or 37 or 47 or 57.
You're giving too much away.
So my mom, over the years, had developed this file of information, which she called the blue ribbon folder. And that's what I had in my hands, was the blue ribbon folder.
And I really wanted one because my mother died when I was a child. And we didn't have any of that kind of information. So it was interesting. I just asked Christy, have you ever thought about helping other people understand how important it is to gather the information that you and your mom have done? And she said, yeah, we talk about it all the time. We update it. And so we decided to write the book.
And what was interesting is, as we flipped through that giant folder over the next few days, Annie discovered, or we discovered through dialogue, that there were things that my mom, over all those decades, had prepared and thought through, but there were lots of things that were still missing, and that Annie knew they were missing because Annie was missing those from her own life experience when her mom died when Annie was a young child.
So we didn't find her life insurance, we didn't know where the dog went to the vet, we never found her savings account, sort of important things like that. And so the book is written specifically for you to fill out and share with your people. So Christy and I are going to just kind of walk through the book today and tell you all the really fun facts about it, and hope you enjoy filling it out on your own.
So for a 1 minute, we're going to tell you what happens when we talk about this generally, or think about it. The average person thinks about getting all their stuff together. They think about all these different things that you can see here. They think about maybe some recipes, as Annie mentioned, bank accounts. They think about, what am I going to do with, where will I put my insurance policies, or my funeral wishes? It's this whole litany of things, and it's almost too much to address. Maybe you can hit one or two of them, but it becomes a bit overwhelming.
And certainly if you're in time of grief, and everyone has experienced this when they're putting together a funeral for a friend or a loved one, it's hard to get your thoughts together when you're grieving and making decisions that you didn't anticipate having to make and really aren't prepared to make. So the book really is about preparedness, but we find that the joy is in the journey of filling the book out, because really it's about your life. It's about living. It's not about dying. We just had to put a
Absolutely.
provocative title on it. So
To get
we
people's
did that.
attention. Do we have your attention yet? All right. So let's dive into Read This When I'm Dead.
So we've built the book in 3 sections. The first section is all about you. You tell all about yourself. The second section is all about your stuff, where it's located, who's going to get it, and then the third section is about your final wishes. So we're going to walk through the book now.
And we did that with intent because the first section, my personal information, is really the easiest to get to, right? Your personal history. That's not overwhelming for me to handle today. I can fill that out. It's okay. I can tell you a little bit.
And write it down. It's just that easy.
It is. So what names, for example? Well, you know.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Number of names. I mean, we both have a number of names from being when we were in our, youth, and I had even a different first name than I use today because, frankly, my first name today was my middle name. But when I got married, I switched it so that now it's my first name. Who would know who I was?
We couldn't even find her. It'd be impossible. One of my favorite pages is the family tree. So this is a really good starting point to just write down what your family tree looks like, and you may have to go and dig out the family Bible and talk to some people who are able to tell you and fill in the gaps. I'm trying to fill in gaps to this day and still have a few that I haven't had any luck with. So this whole section is just all about you. You tell everything you did, you wanted to do, you still want to do, and share it with your people. We do book talks all across the country, and we oftentimes hear from people. We got an email just a couple of weeks ago from a woman who had hosted us at her financial services firm, and we had provided books to all the participants, and she wrote this email and said, I loved your book when you made the presentation, and our clients loved it too, but when my mom died and we cleaned out her house, we found your book, and she'd filled out several chapters, and I learned a lot about her that I otherwise would have never known. It kind of tears me up, and it's really the whole point of why we wrote the book, so that this kind of information actually does get passed along somehow, some way. So the book that you fill out about yourself is all the information is here, and you can leave it for your people.
At somebody's fingertips. It's also designed so it's not overwhelming. You don't have to do it all today. You can do a page today, you can do a page tomorrow, you can put it down and do a page in 3 weeks. But it's information that won't be written down and captured if you don't pick it up. At least there's one succinct place. Even in that first section, beyond the family tree, the timeline of your life, or information about your family, your siblings, information about your own children. Believe it or not, sometimes it's hard for people to go back and trace people, oddly, even in this time of digital information. So it helps to have anything written down.
Christy mentioned recipes, and it was one of the things that I was really compelled to include. I love to tell this story about being asked to make a pie for Thanksgiving dinner with friends, and I got out the only recipe card that I have in my mother's handwriting, and it's entitled My Mother's Pumpkin Pie. So it's my grandmother's recipe in my mother's handwriting. And so I gathered all the information, and I'm not very comfortable in the kitchen, let's just say.
It gets better.
But I started, and I wanted to get it done on time, and I got it all put together, and I made the crust. My grandmother had taught me how to make a crust, and I did that, and I put it out on the cabinet. My husband came home, and he goes, it's kind of wiggly. And I said, I know, I don't understand. I went right by what was on the recipe card, exactly what it said to do. But there's one thing that's missing. It doesn't say, bake it.
Bake the pie.
And I just didn't know enough.
So if you get invited to Annie's house for dinner, you might want to check ahead. Maybe bring a bag.
So it's so darling to have it in my mom's writing, and now hangs on the wall in the kitchen. I don't use it every day, but I do know to bake a pie now, so that was a good thing. But it's a very sweet thing to have. And if you have a favorite recipe in your family, or if you have a secret recipe and you're not willing to share the information about it, put it in your book. It'll be such a great surprise for your people.
And that section also talks about different things that happened in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, just to help you share nuggets. You're not writing a long dissertation. It's just some nuggets over time that are really fun to share.
And it actually goes into your 70s and 80s
It
too.
really
does. It follows you to the end.
Yep.
So one of the other sections, one of the other chapters in this section that's very popular is called The Poop on My Pets. And again, it was driven in large part by the fact that we didn't know where to take our dog Duke. And we just had no idea. And because pets tend to, we tend to outlive our pets. There's a whole section in here about you can draw pictures of them, you can add photos of them, you can tell about them, and all the fun memories that you have of them. You also may have noticed in the news lately that a guy left, I think, $8 million to his dog.
I am willing to woof.
And so the dog is left in one of his friends' care, and she said, well, she's in her 80s, and she said, I'll try to spend the $8 million, but I really don't know if I can. So the poop on your pets and the plans that you have for your pets, I know I have a couple of different pets' ashes that will be buried with me, and all kinds of people have different attitudes about their pets, but this is a very popular section in the book, so you can include your friends, your furry friends.
There's also a section on page 75, and it's called Medical Mumbo Jumbo. Because we're trying to make these chapters happy. That's why the poop on my pets, medical mumbo jumbo. But it's important that, you know, the list of your medications that you have jotted down somewhere that other people might need to access in case something happens. It's very important to write those down so that can be shared with caregivers if you have to go to the hospital emergently, which frankly, I had to do many times with my mom. We actually had a folder with that information. But it is important to have that, or medical contacts, so they know which doctors to contact so that they can ask questions on your behalf should something happen and they need to care for you.
There are pages and pages of all kinds of interesting questions that you'll have the opportunity to fill out. So once you get done talking about yourself a little bit, then you get to start talking about your stuff. And stuff
that's the
includes,
business side of my life.
Right.
So we're going to switch to business now.
And that would include all about your stuff, all about your documents, everything, where it is, what you need, how you're going to find it, who needs to find it, who has it, just blah, blah, blah. And you never really think about it until you need to find it.
I want you to write that down. Blah, blah, blah.
I can spell it.
I know. So it is. It's your wills, it's your trust, it's all those critical documents that a lot of people have a hard time putting their hands on at the last minute, so when they might need them. So it's important to have that, but it's also, again, remember how many times my mom has had to be rushed away or we've had to care for her, and she's still living to this day. So it includes things like money in. And money in means, where does your money come from? So I've found sometimes she gets a check in the mail, but sometimes things are automatically deposited. So it's important to know what to expect, because guess what? Somebody sometimes has to pay your bills when you can't. So I'd have to know where that money was going and which account it would go into, and then also what money was supposed to be going out to make sure that everything was lining up while she was in receiving care, because she couldn't do that. So that's very important to give your people that you love and who love you some kind of a guide. Otherwise, I can assure you, are at a loss, especially with so many things happening online, because there may not be a statement that comes in a timely manner. There may not be that kind of information, and it certainly saves other people who love you the stress and the time of having to dig through and figure it out if you can give them a guide to start.
And there's some really simple pages that if you do nothing else, you can just fill this out and indicate who your accountant is, if you might have a bookkeeper for your business, and who your financial advisor is, so they just know who to call and find out the nitty-gritty details of what the bigger picture is. And then you can also, as Christy said, just write down very specifically where the money comes in and where it goes out. Again, we had no idea after Mom went. We had to kind of piece it all together. And we were kind of little and kind of stupid, so it didn't work out very well, as it turns out. But now you can just go through and write down bank account by bank account. You can suggest how much might be in it so that they can anticipate what to expect. You don't have to reveal every single thing that you don't want to reveal, but it certainly is a great way to get everybody headed in the right direction.
Or the other thing this can be is a tool for you to write it down and think about, and then you've got it in one place, and you can create a note to somebody else that's not in this book. That's a separate note to communicate, but you've at least organized all your thoughts here, and it helps you do that, and then you can communicate some information with this loved one and some information with that loved one. So just to get yourself started.
Also, all about the money out, any payments that you make on a regular basis, all that's in here as well. And again, just easy to jot down. We did, Christy did mention wills and trusts, and there is an entire section in here. It's just a few pages. She's a lawyer, but we aren't really in a position to be giving legal advice.
No.
So we did put in some really great resources that you can check on from the book, and if you don't have a will, you can figure out how to make one pretty easily. You don't always have to go out and get a super expensive lawyer, but at the very least you need to make a will so that everybody knows who your lawyer is and who you want to be handling your estate.
Absolutely.
That's kind of important.
Absolutely.
And one of the things that we always suggest, and we're so happy that UMKC invited us to be here on behalf of the foundation, if you have a plan or a legacy that you want to share, you can always remember loved ones and your favorite charities in your will. We have a special section in the book about that, special gifts and endowments. And certainly, if you want to leave behind a legacy, the opportunity exists. I know from personal experience as a UMKC alum that you can set up an account at the foundation with your name on it. So I have the Annie Presley Fund. I know that's pretty original. And I can just put money in it whenever I want. And at some point in time, I'll probably direct it to one of my favorite programs. But in the meanwhile, it's simply there. I've got it in my book. People know it's there, and they know that they can go and check in with the UMKC Foundation folks to see what kind of plans I left for it. So I would encourage you to think about the legacy giving for UMKC or your favorite charity, because that section is here in the book and easy to fill out as well.
The other thing I want to point out about that is it also says, explain why.
Oh, sure.
So it's important to explain why something hits your heart, because your loved ones need to know that. Maybe that's something that they can communicate to others when you pass, and that will inspire people maybe to help support that which you supported. And I think those stories, as we'll get more into that later in the book, the stories really matter a lot to people.
The stories are the best part.
Emotional attachment.
They are really the best part.
Yep.
So we have this section called All My Stuff, because everybody has so much stuff now.
Oh my gosh.
And we put a quote in there and said, is there stuff heaven?
We wonder.
Is it like a giant flea market in the clouds? Like, there's just so much stuff. And we struggled. It took us a while to figure out how to characterize and compile the records of your stuff and where you want to, what do you want to have happen with them?
How you want to track it. So one of the things we always wonder is how valuable is my stuff? So it's important, there's a little bit of guidance on page 145 that can help you with that. But also remember, before we get into where the stuff is that everybody could find that would be easily found, you might have hidden stuff.
Oh yeah, I think we have a slide on that.
And we do, we have a couple slides on that. So one of the stories that we know is that in the old days, not that long ago, and maybe even today, people used to hide money sewn into the bottom of drapes. How many of us have taken drapes out of those old heavy drapes, take down out of the house, just schlep them out to the curb, they're heavy, and did you ever look in the bottom hem to see if there was money inside? Yeah, take a look at the picture. People used to sew money. Darn, I never looked.
We had a gal at an event told us that she had bought a desk at an auction, and they delivered it, and they had to get 4 people to haul it up the stairs where she wanted to put it in her office. And some antique person came by to take a look at it and said, oh, well, this is one of those fancy things that has a secret drawer in it. Ew. So he unlatched the secret drawer. It was full of gold bricks. Really? So that's pretty amazing, and it does happen. We've heard a lot of stories like that. It's really fun. So be sure and remember where you hid your stuff.
And this other slide is a picture because it's in honor of my mother. When I was young, she doesn't do it anymore, but my mom used to hide her valuable jewelry in a cereal box. So when she would go to the hospital or something and she'd be gone for a while, it was always in the cereal box. She said, well, no one will think to look there. And had it not been, if something had happened, I can assure you, no one would have looked in the Cheerios to see if my mom's jewels were in the Cheerio box. It's important to our family, right? So we also know that people hide things in cans, and he's shown here holding a tin can full of money. I wish we'd find one, don't you?
We tore up, my husband tore up his father-in-law's house looking for the secret can of cash. They knew there was a can of cash in the house. And they tore the whole place up and finally found it and had like $4 in it. But the point is that people hide stuff, and if you're one of those people, you need to write down where it is if you want it to be found.
If you want it to be found.
You just don't know.
You have no idea.
So that's called hide and seek my hidden stuff. And then there's stuff in storage. Oh, Lordy. Everybody's got a storage unit.
But remember, too,
junk in the basement.
Right, but a lot of things, we stored some things over the winter as we were doing some remodeling. And I received all the bills online in my email. Well, if somebody didn't have a password to my email, there would be, and Joe and I were in an accident, there would be no trace of where our items were in storage. And we've heard stories about this over and over and over again, where people know something is stored, but they cannot figure out where. And can you imagine how many storage facilities are within a 20-mile radius of here? So it's very important to write down if you do put anything in storage so that your loved ones could eventually find it.
Jeepers, there's a whole TV show about that.
There is a whole TV show. They could sell that whole box.
We should have thought of that.
We should have.
So we made this one section. It's quite lengthy because everybody has so much stuff, but the page is the same. You tell the story about the item, you describe it, the brand, the make, when you acquired it, and for what reason. Was it a gift? Did you inherit it? Where it is, has it been appraised, and when? Who you want to have be your beneficiary. Is it a treasure? Does it have a financial value, or does it just have a sentimental value? And even include a photograph of it so people can find it. And what we did at the top of the page, just for ease of use, is you just kind of can click on one of the versions that it is. So it might be coins. My auntie had a bunch of coins. Any kind of collectibles. I collect Steinbach nutcrackers. I don't know who wants them, but I like them. And then there's china, crystal, any family treasures, furniture, guns, jewelry, silver, sports memorabilia, and then there's that all-encompassing other. So whatever it is, and we have pages and pages of these so that you can identify the important stuff to you and who you want to have get them. And if you will alert your lawyer to this book, this can be very helpful when it's time to separate out all your stuff and go find it and give it to people, because you've written it in your handwriting and they know where it belongs.
And they can actually help draft a will to reflect what you've written. Don't rely on just writing it in here and assuming that it'll be taken care of. Always share it with your lawyer. The important part about that stuff, it's the stories that matter, and Annie alluded to that a minute ago. But for example, my family, my great-great-grandmother her family was one of the first across the Sioux River into South Dakota. And they used a spinning wheel, a small flax spinning wheel, and they were able to trade spinning textiles to people to help work on the land when her husband died. That spinning wheel, that small spinning wheel, enabled the family to live, and it's currently in the Yukon Territory in our family. But we all know the story about it because somebody took the time to write it down, and I can assure you, 100 years ago, that wasn't that important to them. But it's very important to our family now because it's brought this part of our family to life. So it's an interesting tidbit, and we're so glad that they did catalog that and write it down then. So who knows? I'm certain that they didn't think that was important then.
That's really a great story.
I know, it's really cool. I mean,
I
it's
love that.
super, super cool. She also had a bunch of interesting encounters.
Well, more on that later.
Yeah, more later.
So we're going to talk now a little bit about digital assets, because interestingly, everything that you own, just think about the music that you have on your iPod or your phone. You are the owner of that, and you have a password that goes with that.
How many passwords
and
do you
it does
have?
not transfer to everybody who fights over it.
No.
You actually need an heir for all your digital assets. So there's this whole section in here of anything that you own that's accessible digitally, that you need to let your people know who gets it and how they can get to it. And in some cases, for example, Facebook requires that you have a registered heir so that they can turn off your Facebook page after you're gone.
Right.
So we have some direction in here about digital assets and how important they are. Some of them may be financially valuable, but I've got a lot of music, and I bet there are going to be some people who'd like to get their hands on that. So
That's great tracks.
I have to write that down. So digital assets is something that's often overlooked and very, very important.
And it changes a lot too over time because as we know, technology and everything is changing. So we gave some guidance, but you really do need to look into that. And it helps, again, make a little list, and then you can look into it and check it off the list, but talk about it with your lawyer if you have one.
That kind of leads us to passwords too. We have one whole section that's called spy codes and secret passwords, because everybody has them and they're constantly asked to update them, and it's really ridiculous and super hard to keep up with. So you have to write them down somewhere. And if you have one of those handy password keepers,
that's the best.
That's really smart.
So far.
But so far
Today.
I haven't been able to figure it out. And so I have a kind of the same password for everything or some variation thereof. But the key is to make sure that at least they can get on your computer and figure out where your stuff is. And the other
if
one
you want them to, be careful who gets it. Be careful where you write it so the right person gets it.
The other one is the keypad code on your garage, right? I mean, some people, that's the only way you can even get in the house. And so my neighbor called me yesterday and she goes, "Are you home?" And I said, "Yeah." And she said, "I've got some workers at the house and they need to turn off the electricity. Can you go through the garage?" And I said, "Okay, what's the code?" So I ran over there. But this is oftentimes the only way people can get in your home. So if nobody knows what that code is, they're going to be breaking the door
You
down.
have to break in.
So there are all kinds of, well, there's the burglar alarm. I mean, maybe they break in and then they got the burglar alarm code. All kinds of excitement. So you've got to find a way to get all this written down, and there's just one whole page just for keypad codes.
And it's just to help you trigger who you want to communicate which piece of information to. So that if something happens and you do have to go to the hospital for a while or be taken care of for a while, somebody else can have access. Very important.
We also just add in from time to time other top secret information you might want to write down. There's a little black book you might want to use. There are all kinds of little things in here that are just interesting and fun, and you can just flip right to them whenever you feel like it. So,
insurance.
Insurance,
We didn't talk about insurance, but that is, Annie mentioned it earlier. It is important to write down what your insurance is. Again, Annie could not, she was 12. They could not find her mother's life insurance. They never found her mother's life insurance. And Annie, still lives with the fact that she has no idea where that was. So that's a really important part of why that's in here.
I'm almost over it. Thanks for bringing it up again.
No, I like to bring it up every time we talk, so it doesn't happen to someone else. I think it's really important. Okay, so let's go to this handy dandy, my final wishes.
Final wishes. All right, so we want to play a little video for you. It's just about 2 minutes. It's super cute, and it just emphasizes how important it is for you to leave your legacy and share your legacy. And it also just puts a lot of fun into the idea that there's a movie about death and dying, not just our book. Okay. So it's
The Last Word.
The Last Word with
Shirley MacLaine.
Thank you.
And
Amanda Seyfried.
Seyfried.
Yeah, they're super cute.
Seyfried. She's so cute.
So check this out.
Yeah, watch this.
Louie, no. You do not trim these hedges from top to bottom, but from bottom to top, as we've discussed.
Many times.
All right, I'll trim the bushes myself. Then you can cut the grass.
You cut the grass yesterday.
Yes.
What can I do for you, Miss Lawler?
I request a formal introduction.
Come with me.
Are you firing me?
You should be so lucky.
Miss Sherman, the thought of leaving my obituary to chance is completely unreasonable to me.
Well, I am the obituary writer, so when the time comes, I will be writing her obituary.
I want you to write it now. Here's the names of a few hundred people.
My name is Ann Sherman. I'm from the Bristol Gazette. I'd like to talk to you about Harriet Lawler.
Now, the deceased should be loved by their families. There's an ex-husband. He's a jackass.
As I live and breathe.
Well, from the looks of it, I'm not sure you do. The deceased must have touched someone's life.
I hated her so much.
If I want your opinion, I will give it to you. That's what she told me. I was her gynecologist.
If there's just one thing you could say about her that's nice.
If she were dead, that would be nice. How's that?
Wow. She puts the bitch in obituary.
How grossly I overestimated your talent as a writer.
The problem isn't with my writing. That was just me writing about your life.
My life is not over yet. You are going to help shape a legacy.
This
We have to find a youth to mold, and that will be the person whose life I touch.
You got busted for drunk driving, didn't you?
Excuse me?
You're white and you're here.
When I was a kid, I loved the radio. I'd like a job as a disc jockey.
And what kind of music would you play?
The right question would be, what would I play after I played the Kinks?
And who is this?
It's my intern.
What up?
Can I just lose my job to a 100-year-old woman?
This is Harriet Lawler saying, please don't have a nice day.
I don't know if I can write your obituary. I'm just not ready to close this chapter of my life.
Have a day that matters. Have a day that's true. Punch it! Have a day that means something.
Harriet, you're a piece of work.
I am who I am.
We hope you enjoyed that as much as we do. It always makes me laugh.
It's so cute, and I just love the way everybody hates her. And then at the end, she's the hero and has all these new friends. But you know, she had some issues in her life that she needed to sort out, and she sorted it out on paper, basically.
It was great.
It's pretty
Really
cool.
made her put it
So
together.
we're really happy that we could share that little clip with you because we just think it's fun. By the way, you can get it on Netflix. It's getting, 2 or 3 years old now, so it's a couple of bucks, but it's really a cute, fun movie.
It's really fun. Okay, so this chapter, the first section in it is My Fabulous Funeral. Really? You're gonna have one? Let's make it awesome.
Right.
Right?
And you can design it yourself. There's no reason why you shouldn't. There's a whole new generation of funeral planners. It's a job now, like a wedding planner. There are funeral planners. So if you want a funeral planner, just Google it. You can find one. Or you can just start by writing down some of the things that you really want to think about as you go forward toward making plans. I think plans are really important because, of course, my mother didn't have any, and we certainly didn't expect her to die one day. So that was a little off-putting. But you can actually start writing stuff down, and at least if you get something going, you're better off.
It can provide guidance.
Way better off.
And I'll say, one of the things to really be aware of, if you want to donate part or all of your body to science in some way, and I've always just said, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do it. If you really want to do it, you have to look into it ahead of time a little bit and get some guidance so that you can give direction as to what will happen when you do die. It does matter. For example, my mother has been treated at Mayo Clinic. She's been there almost 80 times. That's a lot of times. And as a result, then they will have her body once she passes. And there were some things that she needed to implement in order for that to happen so that they can learn, so other people can learn from her life situation.
Her disease.
Yeah.
And certainly when you die, everybody's body is treated differently, and hers will be treated significantly differently so that she can be transported to their facility. So you can certainly do that. There's all kinds of information in here about burial and cremation options. So there all kinds of stuff going on right now, but I just want to tell one thing about what I'm going to do. Well, Christy, tell yours.
I'll tell mine first, which is one of the things they have with your cremains. If you choose to be cremated, they can take your cremains and use them as they make sculptures, which then they'll bury and put at sea so that your friends can scuba dive and come and visit. So there's a picture that you can see of me wondering, would this be what I would do? Now, the next
So it's
picture,
an underground cemetery of sorts.
People can snorkel or scuba dive through and visit. There you go.
There. And you basically become a reef over time.
You never know. You
and
can
give
also,
back.
People can,
Right?
you can give back. They can turn cremains into diamonds. They can do all sorts of things. But Annie is going to have a party.
I'm going to have myself cremated, half in an urn, buried next to my mom, who's by herself in a cemetery, and probably with my dog's urns. And I'll probably get a really fun, happy urn. But the other half is going to go packed into fireworks, and I've planned a celebration of life for myself. So basically just a big stinking party.
So I just want you to take a look at the picture where Annie and I were laughing one day, and there she is, hold her fireworks up. Just envision, this is Annie shooting Annie off. I don't know.
At the party, they'll shoot the fireworks off, right? And they'll have a big stinking party and say, man, she was so much fun.
Did you see that?
That's what I'm about.
That was
She was
cool.
so much fun, but you can become, you can turn into a tree. They can pot you with a little seedling and you can plant in the backyard. You can be put into tattoo ink. You can be made into a diamond. All kinds of stuff you can be made into. Also, just burial options are changing drastically now, too. They have all these more natural burials where they wrap you and send you out to sea and all kinds of crazy stuff going on.
There are new tree, essentially I'm going to call them tree farms.
Tree,
They have all sorts of different names that they're coming up with, so watch it carefully. So in summary, this little chapter talks about what you want to have happen when you die, and then also the choices between, do you want a regular burial? Do you want to donate your body to science? Do you want to donate part of your body to save someone else? What would you like? And then if you have cremains, there are so many options. So this is full of information, and there's always more research. We give you some keywords, but research so that you can determine what you want.
So there are a couple of things that we do also. We do a workshop called How to Write Your Own Obituary. Shockingly popular. And within an hour, we have everybody actually writing their obituary. And it's super fun. And it's a thing now. It's a trend. It's called your selfie obit. And it's really, really fun. So if you, and we have it in the book, and you can start working on it. And then when you're gone, at least it started. So I tell this story, which Christy actually kind of likes. She always laughs. My dad had cancer for 16 years. And my stepmother asked me if I could help plan his service. And I said, sure. So I have there's 7 kids and all these different people associated with their families because we're grown-ups now. So there are probably 15, 20 of us sitting in this room trying to figure out how to bury this man, my father. And somebody said, well, let's just start with the pallbearers. Okay, so somebody threw out a name and somebody else said, I think Dad thought he cheated at golf. You know, we couldn't even figure out how to do it.
You couldn't do the pallbearer. They couldn't get past that. So the story is, she said.
And so my stepmom says, well, okay, let's just do the service. And I said, all right. So I got my pen and my paper out and I was ready to write down a bunch of notes. And she goes, he'd like to have taps played. And I thought, that's interesting. He was a mechanic in the Air Force. Okay, we can play taps, no problem. Nothing.
Crickets.
Nothing else.
Crickets.
She's got nothing else. And I said, oh, seriously, 16 years with the cancer and this is as far you got is taps? Oh, and that's as far as I got. So we made it all up from there. And it's just really hard to do with you've got 15 or 20 people in the room and everybody's at different stages of grieving, trying to explain it to their children. You know, it's just kind of crazy. So anything you can write down, little more than taps would be helpful.
Everything you can do to help your family. And my family, we ended up with 2 funerals for my father because things got so chaotic that we ended up at 2 different churches, you know, as a group, as a pod, because he had Alzheimer's at the end and it got nothing was written down and it was confusing. So we did it at one church and then another church. And we thought that way we've covered all the possible bases. You've got to be happy.
And the simple aspect of it is, for example, one of my memories is standing in front of my mom's closet with my baby sister on my hip, trying to decide which dress was her favorite, and we just didn't know. We didn't know what to bury her in. And that was kind of sad. And then we just didn't know how to just do a lot of different things. But the part about the selfie obit that I like the most is that you get to choose your picture.
She does this every time. She's picked her picture already.
Well, if you ever look at obits, sometimes there are these old pictures like from high school or, you know, something that they just can't get their hands on. So you can choose your own picture and tell where it is or set it aside. And I have this glamour shot from about 20 years ago that I really, really like. And I'm just going to use that. So it's important to just make it easy for your people. I think that's the key.
It is. My mom has worked on hers, and I really appreciate it. We've gone through a couple drafts. And what's really nice, too, is and I learned this doing this with Annie, do you write it in first person or third person? And speak the way you would want to speak. Don't make it so rigid. So it's interesting because if you do that, then everything comes to life for people.
Right.
It's very important.
It's really fun.
Yeah.
It's really super fun.
So your burial plans, your preferences, what you want, your obituary, all those kinds of things. And at the end of this book, we have a checklist for when you are gone to help guide your loved ones through so that they can start at the beginning. We call it the fog. When somebody passes, our brains, to protect ourselves, end up going to a little bit of a fog, well, a lot of a fog, when someone you love dies. And so you're in that fog, and if you're left to try to make these very serious, very important decisions, you usually don't do it well at all. Plus, you are trying to grieve, you're trying to support other people, you're trying to just get the process to happen. So the checklist is an important part of that, so you can respond as opposed to trying to come up with everything. And it makes it a little bit easier on your loved ones.
Oftentimes you don't know you need 20 or 30 copies of your death certificate. Literally.
You really do.
So just weird stuff
suffice.
like that. There's no way you'd know that until you've gone through it. So
Right.
undoubtedly many of you have gone through this, but what we wanted was this book to just get it all in a single location where you can collect the information, you can write it down, you can just pop it in a box and put other stuff in it that you want to be sure and have when you go back to work on it. So we're wrapping up here, but there's one really important component of the book that Christy really loves to talk about.
I really like the checklist for you when I'm gone, and I think it's very important. We need to understand that our loved ones, when we pass, their brains go into a fog. It's a known thing, it's scientific, that it's to protect ourselves. And that is the time when they're supposed to make all these decisions and things are happening quickly, and there are timelines that are in front of them at the same time they're trying to grieve. So we put a checklist in here to help guide your loved ones through this process. It includes all sorts of things, including suggesting that they get quite a few copies of that death certificate, not just 5. You
At
always need
least
more.
25 or 30.
Yeah, you need way more than you think. So it's to help guide them because they need to be able to process this and help other people process it and actually grieve and not be afraid that all these big decisions they have to make, they're making on their own, wondering what you would think or what they should be doing. So the checklist is there as a guide.
So we wrote this just so you can tell your story. And we think it's really, really important that everybody do that. It's a guided journal. You get to fill it out. And the joy truly is in the journey. So you can do it together, you can do it by yourself, you can share it, you can hide it. Doesn't matter what you do with it, but you need to just let somebody know that you did it and where it is.
Yeah, somebody that you trust, or else pull out pieces as we discussed earlier and use it as a guide so that you share personal information or pieces with specific folks out there who you love.
So this is the first book that we wrote in our Read This series.
And it won an award.
And it did win an award.
We're so proud.
Because it's so handy. So we decided to go ahead and encourage people to continue to tell their stories. As we traveled around the country talking about this book, we heard people telling other stories. So the next one was?
Well, the next one was Read This on Our Anniversary. And so it is about a life together. 2 people who love each other, how they met, how they spend time together, what they're interested in, what happened every year. And every year they answer 1 or 2 quick little questions about that year from their perspective. So that over the course of your time together, you end up with a story of your time together. I've been married for 31 years. I can only remember about 4 of those years that I could give you any definitive thing. And I'm always sad that we didn't capture that chronology and the growth also. So
the only anniversary I can remember was the one I thought I would spend the rest of my life in the Grand Canyon because I thought it was such a cool idea to hike the Grand Canyon, and I was pretty sure I wasn't going to get out. So that's one I can remember. But it's a really, really fun book. It's also just a great wedding present, a great anniversary gift, a shower gift, whatever. It's a beautiful hardback book.
Yep. So it does help tell the story of your life together. And it's easier. Remember those people that used to always have all the letters under the bed? That doesn't exist so much anymore. There might be text messages, but wouldn't it be nice also to share that story with your children or grandchildren and give them sort of a guide, what you went through and learned?
So then we heard people asking all these questions about the kids in their life and decided to go ahead and write a book called Read This on Your Birthday. So it's a book that a grown-up fills out for a special child in their life. So I'm a stepmom, I have now step-grandbabies, I have godchildren, cute neighbor kids, and you just pick up this book every year on their birthday and tell about their accomplishments, their goals, their favorite food, what they've achieved. There's a place for them to write.
Yeah,
and it's just 3 or 4 pages each year. And then on your 21st year, you give it to them for their birthday present. So it's super cute and easy, new baby gift, shower gift, all that kind of stuff
And
too.
the kids participate. They also get to draw a picture or write as they get older. It starts with drawing a picture. Can you imagine little stick figures? And then over time, they write a few words every year also. So it does become a treasure of that journey together. And also, someday when we're not here, they have how we perceive them. And what more important as we shape identities of people and help them feel good about themselves, to have them have an actual reference of someone who loves them and watch them grow up and could just take a few minutes. I scrapbooked when my daughter was young. Nothing like scrapbooking. I was almost shaking about scrapbooking. I wanted it to be easy and be able to pull it off the shelf, put it back on the shelf. So that's what this is. Make it easy.
A lot easier. I love to have that information in my mom's handwriting about the way we celebrated our birthdays. So, and the last one is read this about my house. It tends to be your single biggest asset, and lots of fun and happy activities go on in your home. But it's really designed to help you maintain your home and keep track of anybody who's worked on it, vendors, any kind of renovations that you do, certainly those pesky paint chip colors, and anything else that's exciting that you've had, fun in your backyard, that sort of thing, parties and whatnot.
Great way to keep track of everything. And the book that we talked about today, Read This When I'm Dead, and Read This About My House, are spiral versions because they're things that are workbooks for you to fill out. I have an earlier version before Spiral. This is my actual book. This is my real one.
This is the spiral.
It has writing in it. And then Read This on our anniversary and Read This about
birthday.
On your birthday are books that are hardback because they're more giftable, so they're cherished.
So we have 4 books in our Read This series. We think we're retiring from it now. We do a book talk about all of them, but we oftentimes just talk about this one because it's so exciting when places like UMKC Foundation call us and ask us to participate.
Thank you very,
so
very
that's
much.
our show, and we hope that you will take a look at our website, and if you're interested in ordering this book or any of the others, we are offering free shipping to UMKC, and you can just go to our website, booksbyace.com, and grab one. And we hope that you'll do it.
We sure do. So thank you very, very much. Remember, tell your story with guided journals, and remember, legacy giving.
That's right. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.